All right, guys, Gennady Golovkin, the former unified WBA, WBC, IBF middleweight champion of the world. Now, going into the Marty Rosen fight, Golovkin had his 20th title defense. But I do want to put a little bit of a little cliff note on that, okay? We're going to put a little pin in that. Okay, it's 100% accurate. He does have 20 title defenses. But in terms of major title defenses, you have to look at his career between 2010 and 2014. Those were defenses of the WBA secondary title, okay, which is not a major world title, but it is considered a title defense, you know, so it holds up in the record books and things like that, you know. So, but to be fair, that's actually 10 major world title defenses as of 2018. Although he did fight for the vacant IBF, but we're not counting that. So, like I said, if you're counting things like the secondary title defenses and everything combined, it is 20. Okay. And I think that's the right way to look at it, you know, when you're looking at Golovkin's career, because you could apply the same set of standards to basically any other middleweight in history if you want to just nitpick their career. Excuse me. And that's the argument I hear from a lot of you guys out there. Okay. Then he went on to lose the belts to Canelo, you know, in the rematch, which was devastating, you know. But you know, tying the middleweight title defense of Bernard Hopkins in that particular fight, okay? And again, devastating to see, you know, someone wrongfully lose their belts, and we know he did. And I want to mention something I forgot to mention earlier. I mean, to be fair, I want to keep it 100% real, okay? The IBF didn't sanction the fight against Marty Rosen, but the WBA and the WBC did. So that particular fight counts as a title defense. And we know he never fought at any weight before that, okay? So again, I want to keep it real. We're talking about Marty Rosen. You know, the IBF rejected it, said, no, we're not going to sanction it. So anyway, Bernard Hopkins, let's get back to him. I'm sure you're probably thinking, well, his title defense record, you know, came in an era where there was only 3 major world title belts, and you would be accurate, semi-accurate, okay? But during his career, it did transform into 4 major belts, although in the beginning only 3 when we're talking about Bernard Hopkins. And I also want to point out certain sanctioning bodies don't even rate fighters outside of their own organization. Okay, so now with the alphabet soup sanctioning body situation, I mean, that we currently have, it's kind of hard to pinpoint, you know, who is and isn't the best and things like that. And that's where the boxing heads, they all try to make their argument. I mean, it's stuff is incredibly difficult to break down. Okay, then you throw in like the networks into the mix. It gets really confusing. But either way you look at it, Gennady Golovkin has one of the best records in middleweight history. Okay, doesn't matter how you look at it. Okay, and regardless of what you think of Triple G, his name will go down in the history books along with Marvin Hagler, maybe Harry Greb, Bernard Hopkins, Carlos Monzon, Sugar Ray Robinson. Okay, it's a fact. Future Hall of Famer, definitely a future Hall of Famer. Okay, now, having said all that, I think Golovkin is the best middleweight we have seen in our era since Bernard Hopkins. I mean, make the argument, who's better? Okay. And again, you know, someone tried to, and I want to point this out. Like, I'm getting off track. I get excited, guys. Someone was trying to make the argument to me earlier that Canelo has the best middleweight, you know, record of our era. But no. He bounces all around. You can't even really consider him a true middleweight because how many fights has a dude had at middleweight? I mean, just a handful. And there's always a stipulation attached to it, whatever. So no, Golovkin blows him out of the water when we're talking about overall resume in the middleweight division, okay? Now, also, you guys have to remember, Bernard Hopkins' resume wasn't perfect either. And we can break that down in another video. In fact, when you compare Triple G's resume against Bernard Hopkins, it's about the same. You know, and of course, Golovkin, his career isn't over yet. But I would give Golovkin the nod if we're going to be honest here. Okay, you know, now if he can beat Canelo in a trilogy, he will definitely rise above the other middleweights throughout history. Not just Bernard Hopkins, not all, but some. Okay, another thing to remember: Golovkin unified 3 of the 4 major world titles while defending them 20 times. Okay. Even if you want to throw in the question, you know, what about, you know, between 2010 and 2014 with the whole WBA secondary title argument, even if you throw that in, it still counts as title defenses. So it's there. And again, you can apply that same set of rules to any other fighter because they all did it. Okay. And it's kind of like these guys out there. They will do anything to try to discredit Gennady Golovkin in his resume. You know, it's crazy to me. Okay, now, moving forward, you guys know Olympic gold, Olympic silver, 350 amateur fights, over 40 professional fights, never been hurt, never been wobbled, never been down, iron chin. Okay, fought guys like Andy Lee, Butte in the earlier days, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there was only like, what, 4 or 5 losses in the amateurs, I believe? And Gennady Golovkin started boxing when he was 11 years old, okay? 11 years old. I mean, look, even like a Lomachenko or any pro fighter, they took some losses in the earlier days. It's a part of the learning curve, you know, when you're talking about the amateur career, okay? So Golovkin, like I said, probably what, 400 fights on record? And that's not counting the hundreds of fights in the much, much earlier days, you know, probably more like 500, not including like sparring sessions, things like that. So also, something I want to mention about Bernard Hopkins, his first title defense, Bernard Hopkins won the vacant IBF, went on to beat, who was it? Keith Holmes for the WBC, I believe. And fact check me on this, okay? I believe Trinidad for the WBA. And I think what belt was that? And then Oscar De La Hoya from 1995 to 2005. Okay, that's how he got his first 3 title belts. And then he, like I said, went on to get 4, to be fair. So my point is, look, we can muddy the waters when we're talking about any resume in the middleweight division, or any division for that matter. It doesn't matter. The fact is, Golovkin's name will go down in history with all the great middleweights. Okay, moving on. Okay, Gennady Golovkin made his U.S. debut against Proska. Okay, and I think you're going to see a little bit of a video there, okay? And I want to talk about Triple G's original promoter universe, because that's a very important piece of the puzzle when you're talking about Golovkin, okay? He was denied a title shot against Kelly Pavlik, Felix Strum, for nearly 7 years. That's nearly a decade, guys. 7 years, okay? Denied. He was basically benched, put on the sidelines, wasting his youth and former prime years. Okay, Golovkin ended his amateur career in 2005, went professional in 2006 after he signed with UBM, Universum Box Promotion. The promotional company had I'm trying to burn through this, guys. Had financial issues after being dropped by the German TV. You guys know, had financial troubles. In 2010, Gennady Golovkin terminated his contract with UBM. And then basically, well, let me back up. Because they wanted Golovkin to take a back seat to like Sebastian Zabik, Felix Strum, and other fighters in the stable, and even outside of the stable. They wouldn't give him his fair due, wouldn't give him a shot, okay, for whatever reason. And that's a little bit unclear. I mean, Golovkin's exact words, quote, he said, "I was always rejected under absurd grounds." Okay, that is exactly what Golovkin said when talking about his former promoter, meaning he wasn't getting his fair shot, so he said it's time to move on. You know, he said there was always some ridiculous excuse. I had to move on. So fast forward a little bit. Now we have the relationship between K2 Promotions and, of course, Abel Sanchez, which he needs to get back to. Okay, Abel Sanchez said, "When I first met Gennady Golovkin, he looked like a choir boy." Okay, and a little bit of history for you. When they first met, Abel wrote the name on a chalkboard, Manny Pacquiao, Muhammad Ali. Told Gennady Golovkin, "One day, your name will be right next to theirs." And he was right. Okay, so August 2012, Gennady Golovkin was going to make his HBO debut against Parag, but we all know what happened. Dude suffered a back injury. I think it was like a herniated disc. The fight never happened. So Gennady Golovkin went on to fight Proska. Annihilation. Okay, you know, there's a monster in the middleweight division. You guys remember all the little sound bits, things like that. So just to recap, Gennady Golovkin signed with K2 Promotion 2010, had a few fights, and then it really got kicked off around 2012. Okay, Proska, Gabriel Rosada, Ashada, Macklin Stevens, 2013, Daniel Gill, Rubio Martin, Murray, who else was it? Willie Monroe Jr., David Lemieux, Dominic Wade, Kell Brook, and then Daniel Jacobs. And that's when people said Triple G is starting to look a little bit vulnerable, okay, around that time. Well, actually, they said it around the Kell Brook fight, but whatever. So, looking at the rest of the resume, he went on to fight Daniel Jacobs, got a knockdown, won a decision, and of course, he was Steve Rolls, 2 Canelo fights. So, you know, I kind of want to end it talking about the Canelo fights. We all know Gennady Golovkin won the original fight, okay? They called it a draw, whatever. The media had Golovkin, like, what was it? 90% of the media had Gennady Golovkin winning. Let me back, I don't need to back it up yet. You know, look, everybody had Golovkin winning. The fans, the media, everybody, okay? But the fight was a draw, okay? So now, you know, they go into the second fight. Again, I think he got robbed. Now we have the trilogy. But here's the question. Is it too late? Is he too old? I mean, I think he's about to, I know his birthday's coming up in April, but I think he's going to be like 38 years old. Is he getting too old, okay? And also Canelo, I think he's starting to show signs of aging, a little bit flat-footed, a bad knee. Okay, we know money changes everything. So, look, it's possible Golovkin can win the trilogy. Okay, now I don't think as of now it's going to happen, but he can. Okay, now Canelo, he still needs to get past Billy Joe Saunders, and Golovkin, he's got a mandatory to deal with, whatever. And we all have the coronavirus to deal with, so we don't really know what is going to happen. Okay, you know, and of course I do want to talk about Jonathan Banks. I just had like a little brain flash here. Jonathan Banks. Okay, look. I'm going to say it. I think that was the worst move Golovkin has ever made, hands down, without a doubt, in his entire career, hiring Jonathan Banks. And look, he's probably a nice dude, nothing against him, but it's not a good fit, okay? Not a good fit. And look, we can talk about Canelo for a minute. Who has he fought in his prime? Austin Trout? Irizarry Lara? Mayweather Jacobs? Well, a lot of people had Trout winning. I think Irizarry Lara was a draw, or incredibly close, okay? Mayweather completely schooled him, okay? And you know, Daniel Jacobs, he's good, but not great. So when you look at Canelo, who is he really beaten in their prime? When you take the 3 or 4 names, you can easily pick them apart quickly, right? We could talk about Kovalev, you know, fighting a senior citizen light heavyweight, you know, in a fight that was rigged. I mean, come on, guys, that fight was rigged. But look, I will give Canelo credit. If he takes on Billy Joe Saunders, wins the fight, goes and immediately goes into, you know, a December matchup or September, whatever, with the virus, with Golovkin, you know? So here we have it. You know, what is going to happen next? I mean, this is where we're at. You know, I took you guys all the way back to the beginning. You know, from the beginning, from age 11 to 2020, here we are. I mean, you're witnessing history. How is his career going to end? I mean, we know he has a multi-fight deal with DAZN. Is he even going to be able to complete the contract? I don't know. He's got this mandatory Zermeta, which I'm not excited about. And also, I guess I should bring up Sergey Darvyancheko. That was an incredibly close fight. Okay, against the guy that he should have annihilated, but he didn't. You know, so look, every resume, not every resume is perfect. Okay, and if I had to put an X through any of Golovkin's, you know, former opponents, one would be Sergey Darvyancheko. It was a bad night. You know, yes, he won, but you know, it wasn't a good look, in my opinion. But you look at Steve Rolls, knocked him out. You know, you look at Vanez Marty Rosa, knocked him out. You know, all of it. You guys know. Let me back up my video a little bit. You know, so. Again, guys, like I said, what Golovkin needs to do, he needs to get the trilogy, beat Canelo, and then, you know, I wouldn't even mind, you know, after the trilogy, if he took one more tough fight and then coasted through the end of his career. But if you're going to get $100 million, I believe he should fight the best, at least every 3rd fight. You know, I think he had like, what, a 5 or 6 fight deal? Give us at least 2 meaningful fights. That's all I want, and I'd be happy with him capping his career like that. But again, future Hall of Famer, you know, former unified world champion, nearly the undisputed middleweight champion of the world. If he would have fought Billy Joe Saunders, which back then, things didn't work out that way. We know why. No need to explain it. So, you know, here we are. We're approaching the trilogy. What is going to happen? Is it going to happen? Is it going to be delayed? You know, and again, I think you guys are maybe sleeping on Golovkin a little bit because Canelo, look, he's getting old. He's getting older. You can tell. You know, and I think he is in his prime, but he's showing signs, okay? And if you have an eye for boxing, you know what I'm talking about. Even in the Kovalev fight, you know, he didn't look great. You know? It almost reminded me of like Deontay Wilder when he fought, who was that? Who did he fight? Luis Ortiz. You know, he was just relying on that power. You know, he was waiting to set up that one shot to get the victory, to get the W, and that's exactly what Canelo did against Kovalev, because, go back, Kovalev was actually winning rounds, but the fight was rigged, it was fixed, doesn't matter. And I proved. You guys know, look, the fight was rigged, all right? So, look, guys, I'm going to leave it at that. You know, I don't like, you know, the mandatory fight Golovkin has coming up, but it is what it is. It doesn't do any good to bitch about it, and hopefully it gets canceled because of all this crap, and we go right into a trilogy, and that is the best case scenario. But I would like to see Canelo against Billy Joe Saunders first because I'm a boxing fan before I'm a Golovkin fan, and that would be awesome. So, all right, guys, leave a comment below, sub to the channel, hit the like button. Thank you. Have a good day.